So today everybody, we're making the amazing Bagman, which is a Spider-Man costume from Spider-Man PS4. So I'm using a toy Spider-Man to measure how big my clay figure will be, making a skeleton out of wire. And then once I get that, I can put the clay over the wire skeleton I have made. So I'm just posing it. And now I can start putting clay over it. So this is just some scrap clay I have. I'm just putting this over first so I don't have to use a ton of really good blue and black clay. So now that that's finished, I am taking blue and black, and I'm going to be using black first. And this will be the back of his costume. So just adding a thin layer of black. There we go. Now I'm just trimming off a little bit of it. This was a technique I was going to use to make the belt, but it didn't work, so I ended up just taking it off. Now I'm cutting off the extra black clay on his back I will not need. So just taking the extra clay off. Now I've got the blue clay. Now I'm attaching it next to the black clay. But I don't want to mold them together. I want there to be a nice line between them. Just cutting off the blue clay I don't need. There we go. There, and now you can see what I was talking about that line. There. So now I'm working on the muscle. So these are the first two, and I'm just making sure that they're the right size. Molding them in with my sculpting tool. There we go. Now I'm just using my molding tool again to work on some more muscle. I don't know the name of that kind of muscle, but you see it on a lot of different superheroes. Now I'm using my molding tool again, and I'm working on the abs. So just putting a small line down his stomach. So once we're finished making his abs, which are 8-pack. So now we're taking a small amount of blue clay and we're just attaching that to his body, and that will be his shoulder. And now I'm working on the technique I'm using for the belt. So I cut two strips of black clay. So I put one strip over, but it wasn't thick enough, so I put the second strip over it. And as you can see, that worked. Now we have a nice belt. Now I've got some white clay, and this is going to be used for the Fantastic Four sign, because his suit in this costume from the game is actually a old suit from the Fantastic Four that he got. Making a small snake of black clay, and I'm putting this around the white. There we go. That looks good. So once it's baked, I covered it with a little bit of plastic, so that way the wet clay I have doesn't get onto my hands and then smeared all over the body, because that's happened to a couple of my creations. So just adding a little more details. There we go. Adding a little detail on the pants where his leg is bent. So now I'm adding clay to the legs, and I've tried to get them as close as possible to the way an actual leg looks. I think I did pretty good. There we go, just working on the knee. Working on a little bit of under the knee. Makes it look a little bit more realistic. Touching up some spots. Now I'm taking my razor and I'm cutting off the end of the leg. Cutting it off at an angle because the boots he's wearing have a weird angle to them. So just cutting that off. There we go. Plastic. There we go. Just making it a little bit smoother so I can work with it when I put the black on. Finishing up the second leg. And I made the arms pretty much the same way I made the legs. I think they look pretty good. Here it is. So just working on the second arm. Just trying to mold the baked clay to the unbaked clay. There we go. Cutting off the end of his arm so I can put the gloves on. His gloves actually don't have that odd angle that the boots do. So here you can see that a small amount of the black clay that we put around the white broke off. So at first I did try to patch it up with another small piece of black clay, but it didn't stick that well, so I ended up having to use a different technique, which I will show you later. Now I'm working on the gloves. I'm working on the hand, which should be flatter than the rest of the arm. Working on the boot, which you can see the angle I was telling you about. Adding this part of the boot. I'm not sure what it's called exactly. I guess it's just part of the boot. So here we have the foot, or his foot. There we go, just finishing the boots up. Now we're working on the hands, and this is the hand that should look like it's shooting out his webs. So just attaching that. Now I'm working on his fingers. Just measuring it, making sure that I have the right pose. There we go. Attaching the last finger for this hand. I think that looks nice. Fingers are really skinny, so you might want to be careful with those. Putting a little hole so that I can attach the web later. Putting a little bit more detail onto the gloves. There we go. I think it's looking good so far. So the second hand is made pretty much like the first hand, except this one should look like it's holding the webs that he has already shot out of his hand. There we go. And here's another piece of leftover clay that I had, and I'm just using this for the head because afterwards we'll be covering it with paper so you won't see it anyway. Using some black paint to touch up some spots and to cover that small amount of white that is still showing. This is the technique I used. Using some blue paint for the Fantastic Four sign, number 4, and also using it to touch up some spots. Now I've got some gloss glaze, and this will give the suit the shiny effect that it has. So just putting that all over the body. Be careful not to put too much. So here I have a paper bag. So I cut it up into a bunch of different pieces and attached them, and then I glued them onto the small piece of clay that we are using for his head. So I actually ended up making several bags because I kept messing up with the eyes, but in the end I did get a good one finished, as you can see there. Gluing the head on. There we go. You can see those eyes look a lot better than the other one. Now I've got some string, and I'm using this for the webs, using white string. Making sure it fits. Yep, that looks right. So now I'm just attaching a little bit of super glue to the end, and I'm putting it in there to stay. Now I'm putting some more string through his other hand, and I just keep passing it through to make it look like he is holding onto it. go. That looks nice. So now I'm just adding a little bit of super glue there to hold the web onto his hand. Just holding the web up against his hand, up against the super glue, so that way it can dry. Cutting the end because we won't need the rest. And I'm tying a knot on the end so that it won't unravel or come undone. And that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So as always, like or dislike with anything you like to dislike. Hit the subscribe button because it will help me in the long run. And make sure to comment down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.